I met her on a day that didn't deserve to be remembered. Gray sky, lukewarm coffee, the kind of afternoon that feels like a sigh. I was sitting in a corner of the laundromat, waiting for the dryer to finish its slow, humming spin. My phone screen was lit with a half-written message to someone I hadn't texted in weeks. I typed you around 3 times, then deleted it 3 times. That's when she walked in, carrying a small laundry basket that looked too heavy for how easily she moved with it. Mid-40s, maybe. Hair tucked behind one ear, soft sweater, eyes that didn't rush to meet anyone's. She wasn't trying to be noticed, which made it impossible not to. The first thing she said wasn't to me. It was to the machine. "Don't start with me today," she muttered, kneeling to shove in a tangled mess of shirts. The machine beeped once, then twice, stubborn. I offered, without thinking, "That one eats socks and patience both." She looked up. A pause, then a small smile. The kind that stays just long enough to be remembered. "Guess I'll feed it anyway." We shared that thin, accidental humor that happens between two people who aren't supposed to know each other. I went back to my phone, pretending to scroll. She stood beside me, her basket now empty, arms crossed, watching the slow rotation of her clothes through the glass. Her reflection lined up with mine in the machine door. I caught myself flicking my eyes toward her hands, small, careful movements, fingers brushing lint off her sleeve like she was erasing a thought. "Do you come here often?" she asked suddenly, not flirtatiously, just curious. "Too often," I said. "It's my Saturday ritual. Coffee, laundry, pretending my life's together." She laughed softly. "That last part's important. We didn't exchange names. We didn't need to. Some conversations live better without introductions." The dryer buzzed, hers, not mine. She opened it, warmth spilling out, and folded each piece like it mattered. There was something slow, deliberate in how she did it, as if the act itself steadied her. I tried not to stare, but my eyes caught the way she pressed her palm flat over a shirt before folding it, like she was smoothing over something unseen. When she turned, I looked away, too late. She'd caught me. "You're the first person who's ever watched me fold laundry," she said, tone dry but not unkind. "Sorry. Occupational hazard," I said. She tilted her head. "Of what job?" I thought about lying, but said the truth instead. "Architecture student." We stare at lines, shapes, patterns. Her voice softened. "So you see more than you should." She left it there, and somehow that line felt heavier than it should have. When my cycle finished, she was already gone. The only sign she'd been there was a single sock on the floor, pale blue, thin cotton, probably hers. I picked it up and set it on the folding table, unsure if that was the right thing to do. Outside, the rain had started again, tapping the metal awning. I stood under it, my phone lighting up. One new message from an unsaved number. "You left your coffee cup. I kept it warm for you. L." I stared at the screen, rain running down the edges of the awning. I didn't remember giving her my number, and I didn't know anyone with an L. But I knew the scent of her laundry detergent, clean, quiet, and hard to forget. I saw her again 3 days later, same laundromat, same machine, same quiet rhythm of cycles. It felt accidental, though some part of me wondered if we'd both timed it that way. She looked up when I walked in. "The architect again," she said, half smiling. "Laundry waits for no man," I replied, setting down my bag. There was something lighter between us this time, a familiarity that didn't ask for permission. While the machines churned, she pulled a thermos from her tote and poured 2 paper cups of tea. No words, just a small nudge of 1 cup in my direction. I took it. The tea was strong, fragrant, slightly oversteeped. It suited her somehow. We talked about small things, how she preferred cloudy days, how the city's noise didn't reach her apartment anymore since she'd learned to tune things out. There was no need to ask what she meant. Her tone carried years of practiced quiet. When I told her I lived upstairs in a rented studio nearby, she raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you're one of those tenants," she teased. "Messy but punctual with rent," I said. "Good combination." It wasn't until later, as she folded another neat stack of laundry, that she told me she'd been divorced for almost 6 years. Not tragic, she said softly. Just quieter now. Something about the way she said it made me want to fill that quiet for her, though I didn't know how. I could feel the thought forming, then dissolving as fast as it came. You have someone? She asked suddenly, not prying, just curious. Sort of, I said, before realizing how untrue that sounded. It's complicated. Her eyes flickered up, not judging, just seeing. Complicated usually means unfinished. She was right. My girlfriend was studying abroad. We were in that strange middle ground. Messages, delayed replies, the soft erosion of closeness. I hadn't said any of that, but somehow, she seemed to know. The dryers hummed between us, filling the silence with a warmth that felt both safe and dangerous. I caught myself glancing at her hands again, the way her fingers brushed the rim of her cup, then the faint crease at the edge of her mouth when she was thinking. When she handed me my cup back, her hand grazed mine. Light, unintentional, but the contact lingered longer than it should have. Neither of us pulled away immediately. Careful, she said finally, looking at our hands instead of me. It's hot. I nodded, though I wasn't sure which of us she meant. She smiled, faint, apologetic, knowing. Then she slipped her thermos back into her bag, ready to leave. As she reached the door, she looked back once. You should visit the rooftop sometime, she said. You can see the whole street from up there. It's peaceful. And then she was gone again, her words echoing in the hum of the dryers, like an invitation that wasn't quite spoken aloud. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. It started raining again the following Thursday, a sudden, heavy downpour that blurred the world into gray. I'd been sketching on the rooftop she'd mentioned, lines smudging under my fingers, when the first drops hit. By the time I reached the stairwell, she was there, umbrella in hand, looking up, half smiling like she'd known I'd ignore the weather. You're soaked, she said. You're observant, I answered, breathless. She shook her head, pulled me inside, her hand catching my wrist for just a second too long. Her touch was warm against the chill of rain. The smell of her sweater, faint detergent and tea, was strangely grounding. Inside her apartment, everything felt still. Dim light, books on the table, a kettle just beginning to hum. I didn't mean to, I started. I know, she interrupted softly, pouring water into 2 cups. You were already here. We sat opposite each other, steam rising between us. She asked about my studies, my sketches. I showed her one, a rough outline of rooftops and windows. Her apartment's window was there, barely noticeable in the drawing. She pointed to it. That's me, isn't it? I looked up, caught. It's just a window. She didn't smile this time. Windows don't watch people. Silence stretched thin between us, fragile. Her fingers tapped the table, 1, 2, 3, then stopped. You're young, she said, eyes lowering. You'll forget people like me. I don't think so, I said quietly, though it sounded less like conviction and more like hope. A knock broke the air. Sharp. 2 quick raps. Her breath caught. That'll be, she started, then sighed. My sister. I blinked. You have a... Before I could finish, the door opened. Another woman stood there, the same face, the same eyes, but sharper somehow. Hair down, red scarf. Lena, she said, voice bright. You weren't answering. Lena. The L from the text. The sister, her twin, looked at me, curious, assessing. And you are. I stood awkwardly. Just a tenant. She smiled, too knowingly. Of course. They talked briefly, surface level, but every word felt like an intrusion. I left before the silence could turn heavy again. Lena didn't stop me. She only followed me to the door, her expression unreadable. Outside, the rain had softened. She spoke quietly, almost to herself. You shouldn't have seen her. Not like that. Her. I asked, but she didn't answer. Just pressed the umbrella into my hand. Take this. Our fingers brushed again, lightning fast. She looked up at me then, eyes soft, something unguarded flickering there. The kind of look that almost leans forward. The kind that waits to see if you'll close the distance. I didn't. Neither did she. The moment folded in on itself, two breaths that never met. I walked away still feeling the weight of her umbrella in my hand, heavier than it should have been. That it had been a week since I'd last seen her. The days moved differently, too quiet, like waiting for a sound that never came. The umbrella she'd given me leaned against my desk, still folded, still damp at the edges from that night. Then, one evening, she texted, "You left something here." I hadn't, but I went anyway. The sun had just dropped behind the rooftops when I reached her building. The air smelled like iron and rain. She was sitting outside on the narrow steps, a cup of tea balanced on her knee, hair pulled back, expression unreadable. "I didn't leave anything," I said gently. "I know," she said, "but I thought you might come if I said that." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The street was empty, a single lamppost humming above us. "You haven't been around," she said finally. "I thought I should stay away," I admitted. "Your sister seemed," she cut me off. "She always seems. Don't let her read you." Her voice trembled slightly, the first crack I'd ever heard in it. I sat down beside her, not touching, but close enough to feel the space between us tighten. "She said I shouldn't have seen her," I said quietly. "What did she mean?" Lena turned the teacup in her hands, the reflection of light flickering across her ring finger, bare, but not new to being so. "She worries I look for company where I shouldn't," she said. "That I blur lines. That I don't know when to stop." I studied her profile, the way her jaw tensed, the faint shimmer in her eyes that wasn't quite tears. "And do you?" I asked. She looked at me then, directly, without the usual half-smile or safe distance. "No," she said softly. "That's the problem." Silence fell again, heavier this time. I could hear the kettle inside starting to whistle faintly through the open window. "I don't know what this is," I said finally, "or what it's supposed to be." "It's not supposed to be anything," she whispered. "That's why it's dangerous." Her voice wavered on that last word. Not fear, exactly, but something close. I wanted to tell her how often I thought of her, how every corner of this street now felt like hers, but I couldn't. The words stayed behind my teeth, trembling. Instead, I reached out, almost without realizing, and brushed a strand of hair from her shoulder. She didn't flinch, didn't move. The world shrank to that motion, the brush of fingers, the breath that caught between us. Her eyes softened. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said. "How should I?" She hesitated, voice barely a whisper. "Like you don't already know." The kettle screamed then, sharp, startling, saving. She stood abruptly, the spell broken, and turned toward the door. "I should get that," she murmured. I stayed seated, staring after her, the echo of her words looping in my head. When she glanced back once, her lips parted, as if to ask something, but she didn't. And I didn't, either. For days, the kettle didn't whistle. Her window stayed dark. The usual rhythm of her life, the quiet movements behind her curtains, the sound of drawers opening and closing, had stopped. I tried to convince myself I wasn't noticing, that it didn't matter. But every time I passed her building, my eyes betrayed me. The umbrella was still by my door. I'd meant to return it. I never did. When I finally saw her again, it wasn't at the laundromat. It was at the small cafe on Maple, the one where the tables always wobble. She was sitting with someone, a boy, maybe 16, dark hair, same curve to his mouth. Her son, I realized, as he leaned in to whisper something that made her smile, a smile too gentle to be for anyone else. She saw me before I could decide whether to stay or turn away. A flicker of recognition. Then, a small, polite nod. Nothing more. Not the look of someone who once held your wrist in the rain. Just acknowledgement. Courtesy. I sat 3 tables away, pretending to scroll through my phone. She laughed softly at something her son said, touching his hand. I wanted to be happy she looked lighter, but the sound of it pressed against my chest, like a bruise remembering the hit. When she stood to leave, she came over. "Hey," she said quietly. "It's been a while." Yeah, I managed. You've been okay? Busy, she said. He's been staying with me for a few weeks. School break. She gestured toward her son, who was waiting by the door. He's everything. I nodded, unsure whether she was explaining or excusing something. She looked down at her hands, always her hands, and added, I didn't mean to disappear. I just needed to make sure I hadn't crossed any lines. I wanted to tell her she hadn't, that the line had already crossed us. But she was already stepping back. It's better this way, she said softly. You'll understand. And then she was gone, leaving the faint scent of her tea and rain behind. That night, I opened my phone and started typing a message. You don't have to explain. I just miss talking to you. I stared at it for a long time. The cursor blinked, patient, expectant. Then I deleted the words one by one. The umbrella still leaned in the corner, unopened, gathering dust. Outside, the streetlight flickered, on, off, on again. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was late when she knocked. Not loud, just enough for me to hear through the thin walls. When I opened the door, she stood there, hood pulled up, rain glistening in her hair. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked smaller somehow, or maybe I'd just gotten used to the version of her that kept a careful distance. I shouldn't be here, she said. I know, I replied. But you are. She exhaled, slow, deliberate, then stepped inside. The sound of her shoes against the tile filled the silence. She glanced around the room, sketches piled on the desk, the folded umbrella by the wall. You kept it, she said quietly. I wasn't sure if giving it back meant goodbye. She smiled faintly. You always think too much. I learned from you. That made her laugh, soft, tired, real. She moved toward the window, tracing her finger along the fogged glass. I saw your message, she said. My chest tightened. I deleted it. I know. But I saw it before you did. Her reflection in the glass looked younger for a second, like someone remembering how it felt to be wanted without question. Did I cross a line? I asked. She turned. No. You stood too close to one. That's all. We both smiled at that. A small, weary smile of people who understood too much about restraint. She sat down at the edge of the couch, hands clasped. He's gone back to his father's, she said quietly. The house feels too big again, and too quiet. Do you want me to come by? She looked up, eyes steady on mine. I don't know what I want, and that's the truth. But I know what I don't want, and that's pretending none of this happened. The air between us thickened, not heavy, just honest. I sat beside her, close enough to feel her warmth, far enough to keep the boundary intact. I think about that night, I said. On the steps. What you said. She nodded. So do I. I wanted to, I know. And that was enough. She reached over, fingers brushing mine. Not holding, not lingering, just the lightest touch. A pulse. A breath shared. We sat like that for a while. The rain softened outside. The kettle clicked in the corner, unboiled but waiting. When she finally stood, she didn't look at me. Just said, some people stay in your life by not staying. Her hand was on the doorknob when I said, will I see you again? She hesitated, one quiet beat, then turned just enough to meet my eyes. Maybe, she said, but not by accident this time. And that was it. No kiss, no final line, just the sound of the door closing softly behind her. But somehow, that felt like enough. It's been 6 months since that night. The rain has come and gone a dozen times, but it still smells the same. Faint tea leaves and wet pavement. The laundromat is quieter now. The machines still hum their steady rhythm, but I've stopped bringing my phone. There's no message I'm waiting for anymore. Just the sound of my shirt cuffs hitting the dryer door and the soft tick of the clock above it. Always stuck at 8:47 a.m. That was the time she'd once walked in, muttering at the machine that refused to start. The memory feels lighter now, like a page already turned. She still lives down the street. I know because sometimes I see her curtains drawn open on Sunday mornings, sunlight slanting across her table, the same kettle on the counter. We don't talk often, not in words, But every now and then, I'll find a small sign. A folded napkin left on my step, a thermos of tea beside it. No note, no explanation. Just a quiet, shared language that doesn't need sentences anymore. Last week, she came to the rooftop. I was sketching again, this time the street, the light, not the windows. She didn't announce herself, just set 2 cups down beside me and Saturday black coffee, she asked. You remembered. I try to forget the right things, she said, smiling. We talked about everything but us, her son's new job, my upcoming exhibition, how the city finally fixed the flickering lamppost. The kind of conversation people have when they've already said the harder things in silence. At one point, she looked out at the view, rooftops, laundry lines, sky stretching low and blue, and said, You ever notice how peaceful the city looks from up here? Only when you're in the picture, I said. She didn't answer right away, just reached for the thermos, poured 2 cups, and handed me one. The same strong, oversteeped tea. We sat there as the light shifted gold. No rush, no tension, just the small comfort of knowing she was near, not as something fragile, but as something steady. Before she left, she said, You can stop waiting for the next thing. This is it, you know. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need to. When she turned to go, I caught her reflection in the window, her hair lifting slightly in the wind, the same calm curve to her smile. For the first time, I realized I wasn't holding my breath. Some loves don't burn out or explode. They settle. They find a quiet corner of your life and stay there, like a light you forgot you left on, warm, patient, still. And sometimes that's enough. Did this story stay with you? Tell me in the comments what kind of quiet, real love stories you want to hear next, the ones that don't shout, but stay.